Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Paris Schutz is on assignment. We begin tonight's program with the latest news from the Congressional Committee investigating the attacks on the Capitol on January 6th.
Donald Trump's own White House counsel, his own White House staff, members of his own family, all implored him to immediately intervene to condemn the violence and instruct his supporters to stand down, leave the Capitol, and disperse. And for hours, Donald Trump chose not to answer the pleas from Congress, from his own party, and from all across our nation to do what his oath required. He refused to defend our nation and our Constitution.
And we begin our coverage with Patrick Cotter, a former federal prosecutor who is now in private practice at Greensfelder, Hemke and Gale, and Joe Walsh, a former Republican congressman from Illinois and host of the podcast White Flag with Joe Walsh. Thanks to you both for joining us. So obviously the hearing just concluded. In terms of what you heard this evening, what was the most striking to you? Patrick Cotter, let's start with you, please.
I think the most striking part of tonight's presentation was the evidence indicating that Mr. Trump intended, that he wanted the riot to go forward, because the evidence of that was his failure to stop it when he clearly not only had the opportunity, but was being urged to do so by many, many people. And legally, that's very significant, because it is strong evidence that he was intentionally part of a conspiracy to obstruct the law and prevent the election results from going forward. And legally, that's very significant.
Joe Walsh, same question to you. What was the most striking thing you heard?
It was just a vivid reminder of what a horrible human being Donald Trump is. To what Patrick said, I watched the hearing tonight and I thought to myself over and over, this wasn't a dereliction of duty. No, Trump chose to do what he did. This was almost an act of treason. He chose to support this coup. He watched it on TV. He cheered it on. Let's not forget, he knew his supporters were armed. He wanted to go to the Capitol. This was an active choice. He chose to lead a coup to overthrow an election, an American election.
Now, among the testimony that we heard tonight was that President Trump did nothing to get help to the Capitol. Let's hear a little bit of that.
Are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Attorney General of the United States that day?
No.
Are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Secretary of Homeland Security that day?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Did you ever hear the President
No.
ask for the National Guard? Did you ever hear the President ask for law enforcement response?
No.
Number of witnesses there testifying on tape that they never heard the president call in any other law enforcement response that day. Patrick Cotter, how damaging, though, is that testimony? Has the January 6th committee hearing done enough to make the case that the former president should be held criminally liable for that attack?
I think tonight they significantly advanced the ball to establishing a probable cause that the president intentionally engaged in a conspiracy to frustrate the election. That's illegal. It violates a number of federal felonies. And I think that tonight's evidence clearly advanced the ball in the sense that it provided a lot more evidence that he intended to bring about exactly the result that came about. If you're trying to get somebody, if you're trying to prove that somebody wants something to happen, something illegal, you can either get it from statements that they make saying, I want to break the law, I want to disrupt this election, or in this case tonight, we saw that the other way you prove it is you show that when they take steps and the thing happens, they don't say, oh my gosh, that's not what I wanted, I better stop it. Instead, what we saw tonight was that Trump, when it happened, he acted like a guy who was very happy it happened. And he sat for 3 hours and watched it happen when he could have stopped it in 60 seconds, I believe was the testimony at one point this evening. So it's very powerful. It advances the ball. Is it enough? It's a complicated issue about indicting ex-presidents, but did they advance the legal case for indicting him? Yes.
Now, we also heard a harrowing radio exchange between Vice President Pence's security detail as the mob invaded the Capitol. Here's a listen to that.
Exit the building. Hold.
On that door up. If we're moving, we need to move now.
Copy.
If we lose any more time, we may lose the ability to leave. So if we're going to leave, we need to do it now.
They've gained access to the second floor, and I've got public about 5 feet from me down here below.
Okay, copy. They are on the second floor, moving in now. We may want to consider getting out and leaving now. Copy.
Joe Walsh, you've talked of the Republican Party under Trump as cult-like. Does this callous disregard that the president showed for his vice president and his life, does that have any impact on Trump's supporters?
Probably not, because Trump supporters weren't watching tonight, and they haven't been watching these hearings. And I thought about Mike Pence there and how close Pence came. And think about it. We learned tonight that Secret Service agents so feared for their lives that they called their family. Think about that. But to what Patrick said, this is really hard for Americans to wrap their arms around. Trump didn't do anything because he wanted this to happen. He wanted it to succeed. I mean, that's right before our eyes. It's tough to grasp, but it's the truth.
Former President Trump has made it clear that he is likely sooner than later to announce that he is running again in 2024. Assuming that he does, Patrick Cotter, does that complicate things for U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland?
Yes. The Department of Justice has had for over 40 years a rule that says that the department should do everything it can not to bring cases that will directly impact or are likely to impact elections. And so it will be an additional hurdle for the DOJ to get over once Trump announces that he is an active candidate in an election, because they will have to somehow square bringing an indictment of him while he's an active candidate. Additionally, remember, once you bring charges in the federal system, it can take years before you get to trial. So the fact that even if they brought the indictment 2 weeks from now, if the case goes forward, it'll be going on right in the middle of the next presidential election. And that's very daunting for the Department of Justice, because, as I say, the rule is don't do anything to affect an election. So it's an obstacle. I'm not saying they can't get over it, but it is a huge complication.
Joe Walsh, if and when Trump does announce a 2024 run, do you think he is automatically the favorite to get the nomination? Is there anybody who could contest him?
Trump is automatically the favorite. This is still Donald Trump's party. I speak to Republican voters every day. None of them, this is really important, none of them disapprove of Trump's behavior on January 6th. If there's any softening of support for Trump, it's only because they worry that all of this news might make it tougher for Trump to win. But they're still Trump supporters. He'd be the undisputed favorite to become the 2024 nominee. And think about that. The man who conspired to lead a coup, to lead an insurrection, to overthrow an election, is the undisputed favorite to be the next Republican nominee for president.
Of course, we just learned tonight that the the January 6th Select Committee says that they plan to have more hearings in September after retrenching in August. So, gentlemen, I'm sure we will have more to talk about later on. We'll have to leave it there for now. My thanks to Joe Walsh and Patrick Cotter for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, more on the January 6th hearings with a look at the communications and messaging extended from the committee to the public. Stay with us.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
As we've said, tonight the Congressional Committee investigating the January 6th attacks wrapped up its hearings, at least for now. It's expected to resume in September. The public has been shown never-before-seen video of the attack and heard from more than a dozen witnesses, including interviews with the former president's daughter, former Proud Boys, and members of the administration that resigned in the wake of the attack. The case against the former president has been laid out, but it begs the question, have the hearings been effective in communicating information to the public? Here to break that down for us are Jane Hall, Associate Professor of Communication at American University in Washington, D.C., and Jason Sherman, President of Sherman Communications, a Chicago public relations firm. Thanks to you both for joining us. So let's kind of start with your impressions of the hearing as well. Jason Sherman, first to you. What did you think?
I think overall the committee's done a great job. I mean, they've called and managed the witnesses beautifully. They stuck with the facts. They've established enormous credibility across the board. They followed process, and they painted a very clear picture. So I think as a body and as doing the work of the people, they've been very effective.
Jane Hall, same question to you.
I think it has been very effective as news. And it has been well produced. It has had compelling testimony. I think one of the most effective pieces of their messaging has been the Republicans who testified. The Republican State Senate, Rusty Bowers, the young woman who worked for Mark Meadows, people who were loyal to Trump, whose lives were changed, in Bowers' case, threatened. I think what they've compiled is a compelling narrative, and today was even more explosive. They did a timeline that showed an absolute inactivity on the part of the president. I think they've built a case, and people are watching. People are watching these hearings.
A well-built case, it sounds like you're describing, Jane Hall, but is it swaying public opinion? Are people changing their minds?
Well, you know, it's interesting. The Republicans said nobody was going to watch. That's not true. Fox News has not been playing it in prime time, and when they play it during the day, their viewership does not watch it. I think they have been convinced this is some kind of a partisan situation. But at the same time, there's new polling out that shows Trump's support waning to some degree. And the fact that he is still at the top of the primary matchup in a lot of places is certainly compelling, but you see some loss of support even among Republicans. And you also see something like 44% of Republicans saying they are watching this. So, you know, it remains to be seen. The purpose is to, you know, that the committee has said is to document the case that there was a conspiracy. But it also is going to have impact on who runs in 2024. So I think it has hurt former President Trump.
Jason Sherman, what's the strategy been thus far, and what should the committee have done differently to communicate their message and their strategy to the public?
Those are great questions, and I like to point out two things. That one, never waste a good crisis, and now that I have your attention, and by that I mean this is a massive crisis, what happened January 6th, and by pulling the committee together and doing these hearings, they aren't wasting it. They're drawing attention to it. They're putting it on public record. But now that they have our attention, now the 44% of Republicans are watching, they need to do a bit more. And the Democrats, it's not just a committee hearing, it's really a vehicle for the Democrats to take advantage of having people's attention and to really, really seize that moment. And they need to use it both to give a boost for the midterms, but to really establish a clear distinction between the Democrats and the radical, fanatical, extremist Republicans that are enabling Trump, particularly those in office. And do Americans truly want that kind of leadership in government that's taking us just 2 steps away from a fascist authoritarian regime run by someone that is, by all accounts, unhinged? So I think the Democrats really need to seize on that moment, and they need to do a couple things, which is to summon converts, people that were former Trumpers, and to come forward and deploy them and have them truly go out and reach out to conservative news outlets and have their Damascus moment and really come out and say, look, here's my road to Damascus. I see what I did wrong. You saw some of the testimony given by people whose lives were ruined. Have 15 of those people on the news circuit on a regular period throughout, and saturate the media as much as possible in op-eds, in personal interviews. That's very compelling. Some of the conservative media will pay attention, some of them will turn away. But the point is, all you need to etch away is 5%, and you've changed the entire election, both the midterms and 2024. They should do a lot more in terms of really demonizing Trump as a major threat to democracy. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in and get Jane Hall in here a little bit more because, we just heard Joe Walsh say it. But if Democrats form the large majority of the viewing audience of these hearings, how much does the message matter if it is mostly Democrats who believe what the hearings are about?
Well, it's not really playing out that way. The latest polling is showing that something like 75% of PBS NewsHour, NPR, Marist polls shows that something like 77% of the American people are concerned about the threat to democracy. What's difficult is that this committee is an investigative committee that the Republicans didn't want to be part of. They probably lost out from a public relations standpoint because they've had a few Republicans, Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, on it. But what's difficult is that the Democrats have not been able, as they approach the midterm elections, to dislodge Trump, to get people to think about anything that has to do with this insurrection as a top issue on which they're going to vote. Now, they would say that is not the function of this committee, but there is a political reality here that the Democrats are very concerned about losing big and losing in the midterms. So I don't disagree with the strategy that is being described, but I also don't think that it's only Democrats who are watching. I mean, the statistics do not bear that out. Fox News is doing a disservice, in my opinion, by commenting. They have Tucker Carlson on there at night saying this is a sham, they're lying to you. But I think that the truth and the facts are bleeding in, or you wouldn't see Trump losing some altitude. Okay. I think that's a fact.
All right.
Absolutely.
A lot more to come, obviously. We'll probably talk about this again in September. But for now, that's where we'll leave it. My thanks to Jason Sherman and Professor Jane Hall.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Up next, more of today's top stories, but first, a look at the weather. Now to some of today's other top stories. This morning, President Joe Biden tested positive for COVID.
Hey folks, guess you heard this morning I tested positive for COVID. But I've been double vaccinated, double boosted. Symptoms are mild, and I really appreciate your inquiries and your concerns. But I'm doing well, I'm getting a lot of work done, going to continue to get it done. And in the meantime, thanks for your concern and keep the faith. It's going to be okay.
Officials say the 79-year-old president has been working from his residence in the White House after having a runny nose, fatigue, and a dry cough. In addition to being vaccinated and double boosted, Biden is being treated with the antiviral drug Paxlovid, which is used to prevent more severe symptoms. A new lawsuit alleges Chicago police made false arrests based on faulty ShotSpotter alerts. The federal lawsuit, filed by Northwestern University's MacArthur Justice Center, says the city's use of the technology has resulted in rights violations, including 2 men who were falsely accused of crimes based on unfounded alerts. The controversial ShotSpotter technology attempts to identify gunfire and direct law enforcement to its location. The city's law department says it has not yet been served with the complaint, though it was not named as a defendant in the lawsuit. ShotSpotter defended its technology in a statement to WTTW News. You can read that statement on our website. Another alderperson is making an exit from City Hall. This time, it's Mayor Lightfoot's hand-picked Ethics Committee Chair, Alderwoman Michelle Smith. The 43rd Ward Alderwoman cites deepening family responsibilities for resigning from the job effective August 12th. Smith's replacement will be Mayor Lightfoot's third appointment to City Council, giving that person a leg up if they run in next year's municipal election. Smith is also the fourth member of the council to decide not to run for re-election. You can read more about who else will not be returning to City Council on our website. Former First Lady Michelle Obama is announcing a new book.
It's called The Light We Carry, and I think of it as a kind of a toolbox, a collection of some of the perspectives and practices I've gathered over the years to help keep me centered, even during times of high anxiety and stress.
Mrs. Obama made the announcement on social media today about the book called The Light We Carry, which is set to be released November 15th. That's almost exactly 4 years since the release of her memoir, Becoming, which sold more copies than any memoir by a first lady or even a president, including her husband, what's his name? Okay, up next, we sit down with artist Taylor Bennett ahead of his free concert at Lincoln Hall. But first, some other events happening this weekend. A local music artist is working to encourage the next generation with an album committed to self-growth, no matter the circumstance. Arts correspondent Angel Ito takes us to Fort Knox Studios to talk with Taylor Bennett about his recently released album, Coming of Age.
It's an album with a sound unlike any other. That's how 26-year-old Taylor Bennett describes Coming of Age, a new project not exclusive to one genre.
It's rock, hip-hop. There's no samples, so I don't sample any of my music. It's all live instrumentation. I haven't done a sample since 2014. It's a big ball of energy, and I wanted to create something that push that energy back out there, because sometimes I feel like people feel like we might be too grown for positivity.
His upcoming show at Lincoln Hall marks the end of his Be Yourself tour, a phrase he grew up hearing regularly from his mom. And while one might think that phrase was exclusive to acknowledging his sexuality after coming out as bisexual in 2018, the artist says it's about much more than that.
After I decided that I needed to be myself more and be more true to myself, I started learning more about myself and being able to really build on the character of who I am.
When asked how he was able to get to this unapologetic point of self-love, Bennett also credits his dad, who serves as the album executive producer.
It was never something where he was directing me or pushing me in a certain direction to do something. It was always a thing where if I was trying to do something, he would help me or he would teach me or try to show me a method of process, because that's what he's really great at.
Coming from government and you know, doing the things that I've done there, as well as in business, I understand structure and processes. What I didn't understand was this business. It was Taylor who really pulled me in and said, Dad, I want you to understand this part about the business. Taylor has changed my life on that. And I'll tell you, I'm pretty good now. I had a good teacher.
But Bennett's teaching goes beyond the work he does with his dad.
He's focused.
He was Superman.
Not only is he doing his own career as an artist, but he has other artists that he represents that are part of his label and his business, but he also manages his brother's business.
It's with the help of this support that Bennett hopes his latest album will encourage youth to explore and celebrate all versions of themselves.
That's always been my dream, like as an artist, is to like bring people together through music, because the whole thing about shows and concerts, and that's what I've realized, and that's why I like it a lot, is that it has the power to bring and introduce people that might not have ever known each other through a love of something they share.
I just be tweaking on and training unthinkable and praying and make them true, hoping they do come soon.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Angel Ito.
We got all in the nose, but I ain't coming to lose, and I will not be removed.
And music runs in the Bennett family. Taylor's brother is, of course, Chance the Rapper. You can see Taylor Bennett perform his new album, Coming of Age, tomorrow at 6:30 at Lincoln Hall, and the tickets are free. Back to wrap things up right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. Join us tomorrow night at 7 for the Weekend Review. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
How come you to play by their rules? Four walls and the TVs and it's a tool. So trying to tell me what I'm seeing isn't true. 'Cause things all what they see when it's all through. How come you to play by their rules? Four walls and the TVs and it's a tool. So trying to tell me what I'm seeing isn't true. Things all what they see when it's all through. I know the shorty from the west side. She do anything for a good vibe. Yeah, I know this chick that's on the east side. What? She do anything just to sleep right. Behind her love in the street lights. Anything for a good guy. Takes a lot to make a girl cry.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm, and proud sponsor of programming that offers advice and strategies to enhance the physical and mental well-being of fellow legal practitioners in Illinois.
I learn to write my thoughts, not scream them so you won't forget it.
From Frontline and Retro Report, in states across the country, the fear of being evicted during the pandemic.
Much of a tenant's experience was completely dependent upon the zip code that they lived in.
These are not deadbeats. These are people that had jobs, that felt secure.
So it's just not.
Tuesday at 10 on WTTW.
Across the planet, in every desert, plants have found ways to not only survive, but flourish.
Wednesday at 8 on WTTW.
You could discover your next adventure behind the wheel of WTTW's Great Treasure Hunt Sweepstakes Grand Prize, an all-new 2023 Subaru Crosstrek. Whether navigating the city streets or exploring the back roads, you'll enjoy the journey with a spacious and comfortable interior, state-of-the-art safety features, and adventure-ready design. Thanks to our friends at McGrath Evanston Subaru. Enter for your chance to win this incredible grand prize. Visit WTTW.com/sweepstakes or call 773-509-1111 Extension 2 today.
Programming on WTTW is made possible in part by viewers like you and by the following.
From preventive cancer screenings and diabetes care to hypertension and behavioral health management, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Illinois is committed to advancing and simplifying the healthcare experience for its members and communities. Enroll at bcbsil.com.
Watch me roll, grind, and spin. Playgrounds for wheels, that's always a win. One with my chair, but never held back. I do things sitting down, most people standing can't hack. Some might say my condition was fate. My doctors would tell you I'm just redefining great. Watch me. Life-changing orthopedic excellence at Shriners Children's, the most amazing care anywhere.
WTTW programming originates from the Renee Crown Public Media Center.